Hello and welcome back to the Direct Capital channel. Welcome to today's market update. I hope you're having an awesome day. Let's look at the market leaders, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin. These are all coins we've been talking about over the past few days, but I'm also going to be talking about how is Bitcoin behaving with regard to altcoins. Are altcoins actually gearing up for a second leg? Are they gearing up for another move to the upside? And I'm going to explain this to you based on where we are in the money flow cycle. But before we dive in, tomorrow is February 6th. You guys know what's happening tomorrow. It's the Bitcoin halving webinar. I'm super pumped for it. I'm super excited for it. I can't wait. The pre-order discount of $4.99 is going to be available for a few more hours, and then price go up. Very much like Bitcoin, very much like Ethereum and Litecoin, as we'll see in this update. So reserve your spot at the Bitcoin halving webinar tomorrow, February 6th, 7 p.m. UTC, and let's dive into today's market update. So yesterday we spoke about how we're seeing a similarity to this cluster comparing to this cluster of price action, and we spoke about how Bitcoin is breaking down past its range high right over here, and that we need to look for a daily close, because if we have a daily close below this range high, then we'll probably see further downside. But the thing we need to bear in mind, guys, about bearish confirmations, they come in two forms. Number one, a daily close below a key level. So we actually saw a daily close below this key level. But then the second bearish confirmation that has to happen is we have to see a recovery from here to test this range high, test it back into resistance, because right over here, as you can see, we saw this level fail as a support. Then we saw downside, we saw the candle close, but we have to see this failed level as support turn into a resistance once again, and we didn't see that. Bitcoin didn't flip this level back into a resistance, because if it did, if we saw a second daily close below this resistance, then we'd see a rejection the following day. We'd see a rejection tomorrow most likely. So theoretically speaking, we could still see this candle dissipate, turn into a wick, and then close today below this resistance right over here. That would turn this level into a resistance, and we'd see a rejection to the downside. But for the time being, there hasn't been that second confirmation, and this is something that I really want to drive home. Bearish confirmation comes in two stages. Number one, it's a daily close below the level, and then number two, it's flipping that level into a new resistance, followed by that rejection, that continuation of that bearish confirmation. Much like over here, right? So if we look at this cluster of price action, here we have that daily close below the level, and then we actually see a wick towards the level to turn it into resistance. It's not a picture perfect test, but this is nonetheless what's happening. We're seeing that second bearish confirmation in full force. So bearish confirmation number one in the form of daily close, bearish confirmation number two in the form of flipping this level into a new resistance, followed by continuation to the downside. So far this can teach us a lot about this. The past can teach us about the present and potentially about the future, but so far we're not seeing any bearish signs for Bitcoin just yet. Of course, we'd have to find out if we see a lower high here, but for the time being, the most important thing that we really need to note is, what is Bitcoin's move doing here? Well, it's actually sucking out a lot of money from the smaller altcoins and from the mid caps as well. But if we look at Ethereum, what is it doing? Well, this was actually a chart that I shared on Twitter. This was a 1 hour bull flag on Ethereum, after which we saw a 5% rally to the upside, which coincided with Bitcoin's recent rally as well. So we see here that Bitcoin is rallying, and it's pulling up all these larger altcoins along with it. So if we look into the money flow cycle from yesterday, where we were talking about this in a bit more detail, this is how money flows into crypto. First, it's fiat, right? You have to buy Bitcoin. You buy Bitcoin, and then it flows into large cap altcoins like Ethereum and Litecoin, mid caps, low caps, and then Bitcoin rallies again, and then you can either repeat the cycle from large caps or just take it into fiat. You can exit the market all together, if you like. So what we're seeing at the moment is we saw consolidation in Bitcoin, people exiting and putting their money into large cap altcoins. We saw Ethereum rally, we saw Litecoin rally, Monero, all those different large cap altcoins started to rally, and then we start to see small pullbacks on Ethereum and Litecoin and all of those, and then we start to see truly impressive rallies in ICX, other smaller altcoins like that. Many different altcoins start to perform very well over the past few days. It's been a joy to trade. But now we're actually seeing that these altcoins need to perhaps have a bit of a rest. They need to have a little bit of a pullback. They need to have some sort of period of consolidation, because now we're seeing sell side action in these smaller altcoins because people are panic selling and moving into Bitcoin once again. So we're actually seeing money flowing in between these two. So over the past few days, we saw these two take center stage, but now we're actually seeing money flow right back in to this sort of sphere in the money flow cycle. And the thing is, we've actually seen positive signs in Ethereum and Litecoin over the past few days anyway. So let's look at Ethereum USD, for instance. We know we've been looking at this in the previous video about why investors are bullish on Ethereum. If you haven't checked that video out, I highly recommend it. It gives you a very good perspective of what we can expect going forward for Ethereum. And so far, so good. So far, Ethereum is following through on those expectations very nicely, because the most fundamental thing here is that Ethereum needs to flip this blue diagonal into a support, and it's been doing that for the past few days. So if we zoom in here, we're actually seeing consolidation, right? So Ethereum is consolidating while all these mid-cap and smaller altcoins are rallying, and the same thing goes for, let me just zoom out here, move on to Litecoin BTC. The same thing goes for Litecoin. So we saw those powerful rallies in Litecoin and Ethereum. Then we saw pullbacks and periods of consolidation for a few days. And it's no coincidence that other altcoins were rallying. The smaller ones were rallying all the while Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin were consolidating in very key areas. No coincidence at all. But now that Bitcoin and Ethereum and Litecoin are actually starting to rally, now we're actually starting to see pullbacks on the smaller altcoins. So like I said before, we were in this sphere of the money flow cycle, but we're now returning to this sphere. And then we're going to see money trickle back into these altcoins once again. So leg number one for altcoins is pretty much done. It's already, nearing its end potentially. But we're going to probably see periods of consolidation, some retraces across the board. But these are all within that sort of cycle. We're probably going to see a second leg for altcoins once we see these cryptocurrencies do their thing. So what things do those cryptocurrencies need to do? Well, Ethereum, we know it has to test this level as a support. It's done that, so we've seen a beautiful rally from that bull flag. That was a great bull flag breakout on the 1 hour chart. So we're seeing really good things from Ethereum, because over here, wick and rejection, but here we're seeing something totally different. Very positive signs, and the weekly is showing that in all of its glory. It's really good. Really good for Ethereum. This is why I was talking about investors being bullish on Ethereum. Check that video out, guys. It's really good. We're talking about the weekly and how the psychology on the weekly is fundamentally shifting. We're not seeing FOMO buyers FOMOing into these wicks over here and then getting stuck because there's a pullback. We're actually seeing FOMO buyers getting rewarded for that. And in fact, people are more likely to FOMO in the coming days and weeks for Ethereum, most likely. That's how the weekly is presenting itself. After all, it's within the 160 to 360 channel. The 360 level isn't on the chart at the moment, but what we need to bear in mind is that it has already tested 160 as a new support. It's confirmed a return into the weekly channel. It's already 22% up. And of course, we have a few resistances along the way up, but it does look like Ethereum wants to travel and explore this channel further. So all good for Ethereum. Ethereum BTC, this is another coin that I spoke about in the video about why investors are bullish on Ethereum. And since that video, Ethereum BTC has actually broken out 3% from this black diagonal resistance. This is the coiling that we've seen within this structure, that people were buying and selling and buying and selling, and now Ethereum BTC seems ready to keep going to the upside, but it first has to breach past this 200 EMA. So far so good, but we have to bear in mind that this EMA is actually figuring as a resistance. The whole thing now is for Ethereum BTC to break past this 200 daily EMA, pull back to test it as a support, and then it's off to the races. Something we were talking about in more detail in the previous video, so if you'd like to learn more about that, check out why investors are bullish on Ethereum. And of course, Litecoin has had that period of consolidation right over here, and now it's rebounding. It's rebounding from the 200 daily EMA, so long-term investor sentiment is very much on the bullish side. It's going to be bullish as long as Ethereum, or at least Litecoin, maintains itself above the 200 daily EMA. And just like we were talking about in the video yesterday, Litecoin has the 200 daily EMA confluent with the top of the accumulation box, the top of the historical accumulation box, where we tend to see the beginnings of a new market cycle for Litecoin. So, and this is what I'm talking about for Litecoin on the weekly. It's trying to retest this level as a support on the weekly, and a weekly close above this level would be magic. That's all I'm going to say, because I've spoken about this in so much more detail in yesterday's video. Here's a tweet that I posted in early October. Weeks from now, you'll forget you felt uncertainty and fear about alts. The immediate realities are unavoidable, the fear is palpable, but these emotions won't matter much in the future when altcoins start flying again. It's all about managing your psychology until then. And look where we are now. We're actually seeing all that psychology management is starting to pay off. We're in a very good position in the altcoin market, in the crypto market. It's very exciting where we are at the moment. And it was worth managing the psychology, but we still have to manage our psychology. We can't get too ahead of ourselves. We have to always keep that objectivity about price. We always have to have that level-headed approach, because it's in our favor and interest to be objective, to be level-headed, because everybody else is going to be emotional. But you have to understand that emotions aren't necessarily a bad thing. Everybody has emotions, but some people are going to be more sensitive to those emotions. And the thing is that that can be your strength. That could be your strength, that you're a little less emotional than the other person, because the other person is going to be more likely to FOMO or panic sell than you. And all you have to be is not emotionless, because that's impossible. You're a human. I'm a human. We're all humans. We're not supposed to be robots, but we can always try to manage our psychology better, manage our emotions better, and that will certainly pay off going forward as we progress in this bull market. And here's another tweet from early December. The bottom isn't just about alts falling 95%. It's about your patience wearing thin, your interest in the space waning, your hope being almost lost. It's all symptomatic of where we are in the altcoin market cycle. Bitcoin already started its new cycle. Altcoins will too. And it looks like that's very much becoming a reality this early February. And bear in mind, when I posted these tweets, these were very much contrarian views, but the market cycle has its own ways. It doesn't matter how we feel about the market cycle has its own ways, and it's going to be progressing. So whether we like it or not, Bitcoin is in a bull market and altcoins are recovering as well. So whether we like it or not, Bitcoin is in a bull market and altcoins are seeing recovery as well as we near the halving. That being said, are we in an alt season? Well, this is my personal alt season checklist. Bitcoin rallies, check. Money begins to flow from Bitcoin to large caps like Ethereum. That's definitely happening. Decline in Bitcoin dominance. Well, yes, we've been seeing that for the past few days, but today we've seen that sort of recovery. Bitcoin moving sideways. Well, we've been seeing that for the past few days, so that's definitely opened up a lot of headway for altcoins to perform well and outperform the market. But today, Bitcoin actually recovered, so we're actually seeing a lot of valuation shedding across altcoins, except for the large cap players because of the money flow cycle. And money flow from large caps to mid caps and low caps. Well, pretty much this alt season checklist was very spot on for the past few days, but now we're seeing a small shift because Bitcoin started to rally and money began to flow from Bitcoin to large caps. But we're probably going to see these things happen all over again, which is tying in with what I explained to you earlier. We're going to see a second leg up for altcoins. And so far, the crypto market is setting itself up for precisely that. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked it, please leave a like and of course subscribe to the channel for more daily videos. I'll continue making videos like this as long as you find value in them. Of course, there will be no YouTube video tomorrow because I'm going to be preoccupied with the Bitcoin halving webinar. Of course, reserve your spot in the link down below. A few more hours for the pre-order discount of $4.99. After that, price go up. But I'm going to be back on Friday with a new YouTube video for you guys. So please like this video if you liked it. And of course, subscribe so you don't miss the next video. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Rekt Capital and I'll speak to you soon.